All right.
Well, thanks for coming. I wanted to bring, this is one of the screen used suits that I wear on the shows, so it was a real treat to be able to bring it.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Okay, oh yeah, that's fantastic. So, Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Derek.
Yeah. So let's start right at the beginning. How did you get into acting, and how did you become part of the Star Wars universe?
I was 7 years old in 1977, and so I was really, my whole imagination was ignited, just like all of us, when I saw the first, oh, yes, R2, but we'll get to you just a minute. Yeah, sorry, let's see, yeah. I always wanted to be an actor, but I didn't know how I would be able to accomplish that. So when I was 30 years old, I started building costumes and coming to Comic-Cons in costume, like you've seen lots of people. And so that was enough for me. That was like the thing that did it. I felt like I could entertain people, and I could play characters, and I could improv, and that was enough for me. But after I'd been doing that for 6 years, I joined the 501st in 2000, and my number is TK409. And
Which garrison?
It was the Central California garrison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then anyway, it took me 3 years. I built a C-3PO costume back in 2006, and up until that point, I hadn't seen any, shiny droids like this as a costume. And Lucasfilm saw a short video clip of me doing the animation as C-3PO and doing the voice. So they asked me to come in for an audition.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they bolt you all together. You can't get out of this by yourself. And they flip on the sound system and turn on the lights. And I said, oh, my goodness, why hello, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. And this signal is not used by, and then they're like, okay, that's enough.
I'm not gonna lie, the little kid in me, hearing C-3PO's voice coming out of a human just went,
Why, Sir Derek, it's wonderful to meet you.
make me blush. That's fantastic. So, did you already have your SAG card, or did you just have to go through the whole thing? Like,
no, I didn't have my first acting role. I've been acting for 20 years now. My first acting role was C-3PO.
that is so crazy.
Yeah.
So absolutely crazy.
So then, you kind of brute force learn acting. I really would have told my younger self to take an acting class, but you just sort of learning it on the job, and then later R2, your girlfriend is calling. And then I've been training just like an athlete trains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you mentioned the motions of C-3PO. I mean, like, obviously, being a fan, it's a little bit easier because it's enjoyable to watch and study. But I mean, how in depth? I mean, like, what kind of work were you doing to actually be able to mimic? Because with Star Wars and a lot of intellectual properties like that, they're very specific on certain things.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thankfully, there's a lot of footage of Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, and so you just study that. It's a very specific. It's not the robot like we might see people doing a dance. It's a very specific set of animation. The way that Anthony Daniels describes it is every limb is separate from each other. So arms are separate from the body, and the head is separate from the body, and all the motion, every motion has a termination at the end. And so that was part of it. He was very helpful, and he's been lovely to me as our careers have overlapped.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
So, by the way, guys, if you do have questions, go ahead and line up.
Please.
We'll definitely get those in there.
Not you, Artem.
So, how much? So, I know that you're building the costumes as well, or just helping to build.
We didn't talk about that.
We haven't talked about that.
Yeah. So I went in for an audition as Q90, who is a bounty hunter droid in Mandalorian Season 1, my favorite character that I play. I went in for a screen test, and then I did that, and then I didn't hear anything. And then I got a call for a character called the Fairy Man. And that was unexpected, because I was like, what show is this? I pictured a woolen-legged character with hooves and wings and maybe a little goatee. It turns out it was the ferryman, not the fairy man. It's a, and so I went in for that. I was fitted for that, and then they said, okay, we'll use you for this. I said, hey, whatever happened about Zero? You know, the bounty hunter droid. Oh, you got that one too. I was like, wow, this is the best day of my life. And so then while we were on set, we talk casually on set about things and what we do for fun. And I mentioned that I had been building droids for fun. And they said, could you build one for us? And then it turned out to be 20. Wow. So I build all the droids that I wear, and except for Zero. Zero was done by Legacy Effects. And so that's why I get to take home some cool costumes.
So you're doing everything start to finish on that, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a small team. We have a crack squad of talented people on it. But
the A-team of droid builders.
Right. Yes. And so I have a couple of friends that have said, hey, let's work on Star Wars together. So
that's so fun.
Yeah.
You're a dad.
Yes, I have 4 kids.
Yep.
3 of them are adults. Yeah.
How much fun is it for them that dad is now in Star Wars? Or is it just dad's going to work?
It is wildly uninteresting. They're like, you're just dad.
Yeah.
They knew me when I was doing it for fun and when I was building costumes for them. But then going on the show, it's like, yeah, you're just still doing the same stuff you were doing at home at 2 in the morning in the garage. But their friends, when their friends find out that their dad tried to kill Baby Yoda, that's a different story, To clarify, yes, I did try to kill Grogu, but I also taught his class as the teacher droid. I welcomed him to Navarro after it had been restored as the tourism droid. And then I saved his life as Copper in season 3 of Mandalorian when I pushed the, Grief Karga statue over on IG-12, or IG-11, yeah. So R2 and I have worked a lot together, and he has no complaints.
You got a question?
Yes.
Yeah, just really quick.
Yes, R2.
Thanks, R2.
It's all right.
Do you have a favorite insult that's directed at C-3PO throughout the series? And now that you've donned the golden outfit, do those insults hurt your feelings a little bit more?
No, let's see, my favorite insult. Gosh. I think the classic, don't call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease, is a great one. Yeah, I like that one. But no, I don't take it personally. Unless R2 is really talking to me, which happens a lot. Yeah.
Speaking of donning the costume and all that, obviously you studied, what Anthony Daniels was doing before. So you watched a lot of that. Do you watch your own performances?
Yeah, because you want to see how your movement reads physically. Because acting in a suit is is a little bit different than working on camera, which is without a mask. Because this is you have this to work with, and in a suit, you have the whole body. And so I do watch it to see, the weight of the costume weighs about 21 pounds. It's heavier than it feels when you're doing it. So your animation, you really try to animate in your mind. In your mind, you're animating less than what you think you're doing. So you watch it and then you overdo it so that it reads correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to kind of do more than you think you need to do because of the weight of the costume.
And obviously playing different droids, different characters, you need to come up with different movements.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. What's your process for deciding what types of movements for each character, personality, voices, whatever it may be? Yeah,
so Zero, looking at the costume really informs a lot for me. the costume, you know, he looks like a praying mantis. And so I went and studied praying mantis videos, which are horrifying, actually. But he has like those mandibles, he has eyes, and he has a head shape like a mantis, so I wanted him to move like a bug, like an insect, and which is very creepy, has a creepy feel, which is really the most common reaction that I got on set. And but then other droids like, you know, C-3PO is always a fish out of water. He's always not where he's supposed to be, often. And so he's very frantic and agitated and concerned, whereas, say, the teacher droid in Mandalorian Season 2, she is exactly where she's supposed to be. So all of her movements are very calm, and she's pointing to the star map and gesturing to the class. You know, she has a very calm set of movements. Another one is One Jack from Obi-Wan Kenobi. This one I played, he looks like another classic droid. That's right, 4-LOM. And so I played, you know, we've never seen 4-LOM in action except for in the comic books. Well, I was just doing what I wanted to see, you know, as a fan of 4-LOM. So I played him like a grasshopper. Like when he's going through the streets, his arms are back like this because he wields 2 pistols. So I wanted him to look kind of like a grasshopper. What else? Copper. Oh, Copper was Grief Karga's droid in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, and I played him like a teenage C-3PO. So he's like, he's brand new, shiny. Grief Karga had just restored Navarro to its former glory. Everything is nice and clean, and so he had a nice, freshly chromed droid as well. And so I played him as like a not as well experienced C-3PO. He was a younger, brand new droid who, because throughout the story, he's always pointing out things that Grief Karga already knows, you know, and he doesn't have all the information that Grief Karga has. And so that's how I played him. The traffic droid in Book of Boba Fett was, he was all super grimy. He had some warning markings on him. He had stripes on the face and stuff. And so I played him like he was 400 years old, you know, like he has some loose bolts and maybe the circuitry is in top first class condition. And so I played him like he was loose, you know, and he was caught in traffic. And so I played him like that. So that's it. That's just a few examples.
That's fun. That's fun. You, at least currently, we'll talk about some stuff later where this is changed, but currently you have somewhat unique experiences being an actor playing a bunch of famous roles that people on the street don't know who you are when you're just walking down.
Yeah.
So what's it like to have a little bit of anonymity right now?
Oh, it's just like regular life. You know, nothing's
Does
different.
anybody ever, like, do people, like, if they were asked what you do and you're like, oh, I'm C-3PO,
That's not what I say. I say I'm an actor.
Yeah.
You know, and then if they want to know more, you know, whoa, what have you been in? You know, then I might talk about Mandalorian and stuff like that. But you know, I love the fan groups. You know, the Droid Builders, the 501st, the Rebel Legion. I have a close relationship with them, and they have been so kind and warm to me, welcoming me to shows and to their areas, and so that's really nice.
It's definitely a family.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right. Yes, we appreciate you.
Yeah, it's fun because whenever I get to do the Star Wars panels, I can look out and there's familiar faces.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I guarantee that all the Star Wars guests that are here gonna see a lot of the same people in those.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it
it's
is
great.
fun. So,
Yes.
what's kind of one of the big bonuses or benefits of kind of meeting your fans now that you've been doing this for a little while and you're starting to see the love of the Star Wars? What's a couple of maybe highlights?
Yeah, let's see. I love seeing with new technology, what else can be built and made. You know, so I love seeing, you know, or as new characters, new shows come out. You know, like we saw an R2 unit from the Halcyon, which was the Disney Star Wars hotel, and being able to see, you know, working on the shows and then being able to see someone build something that you worked on is really cool. I've seen people who've created, you know, Q90 costumes, and others too, other protocol droids and stuff. That's so satisfying, you know. You think like, oh wow, people are watching our shows, and we wouldn't have shows without you watching. So we are always so grateful to the fans. I mean, I'm a fan too. I only get to know the part that I'm filming, you know. So when I go home, I'm super excited, just like you are, to watch the show, to see what the rest of the story is about, and also to see, you know, how cool the droids look.
Yeah. Speaking of fans building, you know, costumes that you helped design, do you have anybody reaching out from the droid building groups or 501st that they're like, hey, Chris, I'm stuck. What'd you do to do this? Have you had that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's great to be able to help where you can.
Yeah.
Some information is proprietary, you know, and because I collaborate with Lucasfilm on all the designs and the costumes and stuff, you know, I try to share as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. By the way, guys, if you have more questions, please come on up. I see people. Yep. I knew sometimes just gonna give a little nudge.
Yes. Have we met before?
No.
Oh.
No.
You just look familiar. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I was curious, how long does C-3PO live for?
How long does C-3PO live for? Well, droids are not like humans with a lifespan. It's really just how many times they can be recharged. They can be deactivated, but they always can be reactivated, unless they've been vaporized, which has been my case on a couple of droids that I've played. You know, but there's also, droids are like refrigerators in our world. Everybody has one. They look different. Sometimes they function better than others. But you know, in the Star Wars galaxy, they're really common. And so you might see two that look really similar. That doesn't mean they are the same character. One example of that is in Navarro, there was a white protocol droid that is we call the tourism droid that I play, that welcomes people to Navarro. And we were trying to figure out what color that one should be. And I'm a Star Wars nerd. I said, you know, we haven't seen a white one since Empire Strikes Back. It might be cool to see a white one, like K-3PO on Hoth. And so it was decided that, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do white. So that's how that one got its color. But others, you know, are from different ideas, different homages to previous films, or, you know. But as far as like how long is C-3PO gonna live, it depends on the writing, I guess. So.
Speaking of the colors, it just hit me, and it may have already been out there, but I have not seen everything. Have we seen a full red protocol droid?
Yeah, I played C1D1 in Ahsoka, which was red. It was full red, but it had some gray accents.
Okay.
And yeah, that was a protocol droid. Yeah.
I was thinking about the arm, and all of a sudden, hey, man, I'm like, I don't know if I've
Oh, the
seen
red
it.
arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's cool about making decisions, creative decisions on set? Sometimes it happens on the day, and it's fun to create a backstory for that, you know, what we're seeing on screen, even though sometimes they're thought out way in advance, and sometimes it's solving a problem right there, and it's still canon, it's in the story, so it has to have a story.
Yeah.
You know, how did C-3PO get his silver leg? Does anybody know how he got his silver leg? No. So I had to ask Lucasfilm, and they told me. And I'm going to tell you this story right now. This is how C-3PO got his silver leg. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was an accident, and R2-D2 knows what happened. But he's not going to tell C-3PO because C-3PO would freak out, as he would, right? And we know that George Lucas wanted to add the appearance of history to a character like C-3PO. So just like old cars or refrigerators, parts have been, you know, replaced. That's why he has a silver leg. But the actual story behind it is a story that's too terrible for C-3PO to handle. But R2 knows, and maybe one day he'll reveal it.
And the Red Arm has a story. It has a comic book.
Yeah, that's right. The Red Arm also has a story. There's a one shot in Marvel Comics where C-3PO receives the Red Arm. And it was an RA-7 droid, another type of droid that I played, also known as the Death Star droid. So anyway, that's a cool story. You should go read that one.
Brings up a good point. As a Star Wars fan, were you a fan of the comics and the books and all that as well, or did you stick primarily to the movies?
Yeah, as a kid, I loved seeing the retelling, the stylized retelling of the movies in the comics. And that's something that, if I can share from the production, the animated shows, like, you know, this goes to like comic books, but also Clone Wars and Rebels. The animated shows are stylized retellings of actual events that happened in the Star Wars universe. That's why we see a live action Ahsoka. You know, she's not just a cartoon character, she's an actual character. And those stories of the Clone Wars, you know, those were, you know, retellings of actual events. So, you know, we've seen some of those events in live action, you know, like we did in Ahsoka. So yeah, I loved the comics because I as a kid wanted to draw comics or be an animator or a cartoonist. So I would pick up all of those, and I loved it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Anthony Daniels often complained at how uncomfortable the C-3PO costume was, and so I was wondering, is there technology that makes costumes like that, the droid costumes that you build, more comfortable, easier to wear?
Is there technology that makes the costumes more comfortable to wear than, say, back in the 70s?
Yeah, like the materials you made it out of.
Right. Some of it, yeah. Like the most painful part for Anthony, as he has described, has been the hard plastic shoes that he wore in A New Hope in Tunisia. Since then, we use different material that's a little more flexible, and that makes that a lot, because the weight of the legs rests on the ankles, so you want those to be a little more uncomfortable. So yeah, we've been able to make that a little more comfortable. They still look the same, they still chrome the same, but they feel better. They're not knifing into your feet. Other things, though, to your question, I do all my own stunts in the suits. There's not another guy who jumps in and is shot or blown up or disintegrated. And the first stunt I did was as the bartender droid in season 1 of The Mandalorian, where the joke is that I'm still delivering the drinks while there's this huge shootout, you know, stormtroopers flying across tables and blaster bolts and everything, and the whole. I apologize if I'm going too fast.
Oh,
Okay.
nope, I'm right with you.
The whole cantina, you know, blows up. The first the point was I was supposed to fall on a stunt pad. Okay, I rehearsed it with the whole everybody 7 times, no problem, made it. It was fine. And then they light the whole setup, make it all live with pyro, and one of the stormtroopers decides to mix it up a little, and he spun around and bumped into me, and I lost my balance and I fell on the hard ground. And I thought that was the hardest day of filming, physically. But then, when we were filming Obi-Wan Kenobi, I had to play one Jack, which is the character that looks like Forlom, green glowing eyes. And they said, the stunt coordinator said, we're gonna have you get shot, but because of the nature of the scene, we're gonna still see you in the shot, so you're gonna have to fall on the hard ground. So when you do that, you have to do it over and over and over and over. So I was slamming it against the wall and hitting the ground and slamming it against, you know, all morning. But when your scene mate is Ewan McGregor, he comes over and then, you know, they take off the head and he's standing over him and he says, "Chris, are you all right?" And I go, "Yes, but you do not have the high ground this time." He says, "Oh, I would never say anything like that, wouldn't you?" There's a lot of stunts that I do in the suits, and there's no room for padding. It's just do what you can do, and you know, you want to do your best job and make it look really real. So there's no technology that fills in the spaces of nothing. There's no room in here for pads. So yeah, good question. Yeah.
Speaking of Ewan McGregor and you being a fan as well, you ever catch yourself being a little starstruck?
Let's see. I would say because, you know, the first couple of times I was on set, yes, you try to keep it all contained, but inside you're bubbling up with your 7-year-old energy. And the first time, there's an actor named Werner Herzog who plays the client, the remnant imperial warlord who would like to see the baby, that guy. And he is this venerated director, actor, writer, and he was like our Alec Guinness, you know? And so we're both standing next to each other watching a scene being filmed, and I'm up to my neck in droid costume, and I'm just so excited, but I'm playing it cool. And so I just try to be as cool as I can, and I just lean over and I go, "Is this exciting?" And he goes, "This is serious work. We are breathing life into characters which would not otherwise exist." That's just what I was thinking. But it was great because it reinforced how special what we were doing was. Nobody had seen any of The Mandalorian. It was a very new thing, and so that was really cool. Seeing you and McGregor, everyone on set wants to hear, "Hello there." But he never does it. He comes on set and he's like, "Hey guys." I'm like, "Oh." You know, that's because everybody asks him to do it a billion times, and so he's just kind of like, that's like the one phrase he avoids, but it's fine. Let's see, I'm gonna share something that's really personal to me, is Carl Weathers. We lost him a couple of years ago, and I worked with him every day on season 3 as Copper. I was his right-hand droid. When we first started, we didn't have anything in common. He is a 12-foot tall action star, right? This is in my mind, and everybody on set, that's what it was like. But to him, he was just coming to work to create cool characters that tell an interesting, entertaining story. And he wants to work with you to make that happen. So I would come to set with the suit already on, the face was already on, because sometimes it takes a while to put it on. And, also, I kind of wanted to create a feeling of we're all in Star Wars, so when a droid comes on set, that's really, I learned this from Rosario Dawson. She said, "This is such a vibe," to have the droid there. And so I was doing that, but it was also helping me to feel like, how would this character be in this environment and stuff. Just a little bit of character rehearsal. So then I'd have that face on, I would go right into rehearsal for the scene with Carl. And after doing that a few times, Carl said, "Chris, I want you to take off the mask." And I go, "Oh, okay, Carl." He says, "I can hear your voice. I can hear the emotion. I want you to take off the mask so that you and I have an emotional connection, so that when you put the mask back on, I still see your face. So then, our characters will have an emotional connection." And I thought, he didn't have to do that. What a generous, amazing, giving man. And so that was such a gift, and I loved working with him so much. And then when we lost him so suddenly, it was just it's like getting the most amazing Christmas present, and then someone taking it away. And so really miss him. We all do on set.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to have him here a year before he passed. So yeah,
That's great.
yeah. But we have a question.
Yes, I love that you came in costume.
I wanted to ask, we heard about how the suits can be difficult. Did you ever get stuck in any of them?
Stuck like nobody can get me out of it?
You couldn't get maybe an arm off, or you couldn't get the whole thing off?
Right.
Anything like that?
It's usually trying to get the parts on that is the sticky part. But You know, early in my career, 19 years ago, I was doing a McDonald's commercial. It was one of the very first things I did as C-3PO. And I didn't have a dedicated dresser at that point. It was just whoever was available. So people aren't always available. They have other things to do. So I get suited up, and then 6 hours later, we'll get you out of it. And I didn't know it was gonna be 6 hours. So, but you know, you want to be a team player, and you don't want to complain and things like that. But that was kind of before I learned the value of speaking up and saying, "Hey, I gotta go 10-1." That's code for I gotta pee. Or I'd like to sit down, because you can't sit down in the costume. So now I have a dedicated dresser, and that person, I have a couple of them, and that person can, and also to someone else's question about technology changing, we have a little more quick release situation on different parts so that they come apart faster. So if you can take little breaks throughout the day, that makes you go longer, then you're in it for 2 hours and now you're like done and you still have 6 more hours to go, you know what I mean? So I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
I got a follow up on her question with that. For scenes where, you know, we're not going to see full body and whatnot, are you able to, you know, if it's going to be, we got the next couple hours are going to be headshots only, are you able to just, you know, at least take the shoes off or you know, kick some sneakers on or some bunny slippers?
You know, they did that in the original films. On set, they are trying different things, so they're like, we're gonna do a close shot, we're gonna do a wide shot. And it's kind of a hassle to put the other parts on and stuff, so I haven't had a lot of situations where I can just,
So unless they're sticking strict to a storyboard where it's already planned out, it's a little...
Right, yeah. And then sometimes, like, my dresser made some hiking poles, so I can rest my arms on the poles, because this is all a performance. A lot of times people ask, does the suit make you move that way? And I say, no, that's why there was an audition. Otherwise, anybody could do it. And so standing like this, C-3PO is always ready to help. He's ready whether on a keyboard or on a door lock or whatever. I don't know, I guess that's R2's job, is opening doors. But so all the movement you see that I'm doing in the droids, that's all a performance. If you saw me just moving like me, it would be like, oh, that's a guy in a costume. Yes, you would like a costume, R2? You're right. He knows how uncomfortable it is for me. Yes, sir.
All right, so Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. Amazon and MGM. Are you secretly hoping 100-year-old Mel Brooks will ask you to play Dot Matrix?
Absolutely, yes. I would totally wear a skirt, yeah. Yes, I have worn a dress in other characters. One in Book of Boba Fett, I played an alien on an elevator. But yes, to answer your question, I would love to play Dot Matrix, yeah. I don't know if I have the legs for it, but yeah. Yes, thanks.
So I know obviously you get to take some of the fun things home because you're a part of building it. Any other souvenirs that may have made their way home from sets for you?
Maybe.
Any that, if they did, that you could talk about?
Listen, I believe in preserving safety on set. We don't want anyone to be injured by tripping over something that might have been left there. So, when they blew up my cantina, there's, shards of plastic domes laying around, and I was just picking up trash, and I didn't know where the trash can was.
Yeah.
So I just protected it and other people by putting it in a safe place. The lava flats in season 3 of Mandalorian. There's, rocks everywhere. People could die tripping over these.
Well, and the floor is lava. It's dangerous.
Yes, right. So I, in an effort to, really save people from certain death, I might have, collected those in the name of safety.
Well, and foam pieces need to be recycled properly, so
Right.
it's about the environment.
Yes, yeah, you don't want rubble from Navarro blowing out into the ocean. So that might also be on my shelf at home. Hi.
Hi. So you said you were in the dance since you were little. When you were auditioning and when you got the part, how did you feel? Like, I'm guessing you were really, really excited. And
Yeah, I was really excited when I did the audition. But any actor, any role is a one-time thing. There's not like a contract for 19 years, you know? It's like, hey, we need a substitute for today. And it happened to me in Australia, and we're gonna fly you there, but you just think that's the one-time thing, and then you don't know it's more until they call you again. And then now you're doing a McDonald's commercial, and then they call you again, and now you're doing the Oscars. And then they call you again, and now you're meeting the President of the United States in the White House because he called because he wants to take a picture with you. So you never know.
so it's not
Yeah.
like with some of the other actors when they get the call and they find out they're in Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. It was. I would think it was more so when I got the job for Zero, because now this is the first time I'm in a narrative. You know, I did do a scene for The Force Awakens with the red arm, but it was like a really quick, you know, C-3PO and R2 meet BB-8, and that was really cool. But playing Zero was really the one that was like, oh, this is cool because what if he got an action figure, you know? But of course, at that time, you don't know what the plans are. But yeah, I would say every day feels like the best new day of your life. You know what I mean? Every time they call, so I feel really lucky to be part of this because I know, or I assume, that people are watching the shows, and we don't know until we get reviews back or whatever. So there's no one on set that's like, "Yay, good job," or "Wow, that was neat." It's just like, next, all right, cut, moving on. So it's really fun to hear from fans that enjoy the show. Really love that because that's really the first time we get to hear if people like it.
We all do.
Oh, great, thank you so much.
You mentioned not having that instant gratification of not having an audience on set. How do you know when you're finishing a scene and you're like, okay, that was it? Like, what is it for you that makes you feel like, all right, that was the performance that I wanted?
I'm doing what I would want to see as a fan. So like any movement decisions or however I'm holding blasters, whatever, how I'm talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever. I'm doing it how I would want to see as a fan. So you hope that that other people relate to what you would want to, but really I'm just doing what I would want to see. And I think that's when you get the most, when you get a really personal performance. I think people can relate to that, because it feels real.
Yeah, it popped into my head here where you talked about creating some of these new characters. That, I mean, obviously C-3PO is iconic, but now you're getting to create your own part of the Marvel, the Star Wars universe. For these
Did you hear that, R2? We're going to be in Marvel universe. We better tell Deadpool.
I mean, come on.
We have a mashup. Deadpool and the droids.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but so when you're building the new droids, are they coming to you with concept designs? How much flexibility do you have with what the droids are going to look like? What's your input from that side?
Yeah, like I said, yes, R2, you get to pick some things, but it is a collaboration. So I'll just say that sometimes we're trying to solve problems, and I mean creative problems. So maybe the problem is this looks too much like C-3PO. How could we change that? I'm like, I got some ideas, and I throw together a couple of things in Photoshop and I show them, and they say, oh yeah, that could solve our problem. Like in the traffic droid from the Book of Boba Fett, that was supposed to be, silver C-3PO, head to toe, And when he's on the sand, he reflects the sand and it looked gold. So that was a problem that we needed to solve. So how do we solve that? Well, I thought it would be cool if you had some like traffic warning markings on him, or maybe we switch out the chest with a Death Star droid chest, you know, and that's how that design came about. But yeah, it's a total collaboration. Sometimes I come with ideas, I show it to them, and they say, "Oh, thank you." I just give them as gifts. These are just, you can take the ideas, you can throw them away, you can give them to somebody else, you can return them. I don't care. It's just a gift. And that's what John says: is come to set with ideas, and that means even things that you're not maybe initially responsible for, like lighting or camera placement, you know. But yeah, to answer your question, it's a total collaboration, and John loves ideas. One of the characters was the ferryman that I mentioned before. All my lines were in English, but if you see on the show, his voice is an alien voice, like wah, 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 like that. But all my lines were in English, so I just came up with a voice. What if he sounded like a Soviet used car salesman? And we go into rehearsal. John Favreau's there, Dave Filoni, and Mando, and he goes, all right. So from the top, here we go. This speeder is brand new. It just arrived on the Spinwood freighter. And John goes, let's cartoon it down a little. So I said, yeah, I can do that. So I did a little different, slower and sleepier, and then when there was some discussion about, would this alien speak an alien language? And I go, actually, in A New Hope, the Kubaz species did speak alien language. It sounds like wah, 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 wah. And they go, all right, why don't you just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll figure it out. And ultimately, they did bring back that voice. I'm not saying I came up with that. I'm just saying that it's a collaboration. I was doing a different voice and stuff like that. But I love how open they are on the production to ideas. It's just like you would imagine as a fan. You're so, have so many cool things you would want to see, and so you bring those to set, and then you don't get precious about it. You share it, and then maybe they use it, maybe they don't, But either way, you are a valuable person because you are creative. You're not just a person in a suit.
Yeah. Do we have more questions? I think that we have one. Yeah.
Are you in touch with any of the other Star Wars actors that you've worked with?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Emily Swallow is a neighbor of mine. She plays the armorer, and we just did a little. We just did a charity thing where we built an armorer helmet for a charity auction, and that was a lot of fun. Misty Roses, who plays Quill and the Frog Lady, also very good friends with her. We've been known to go to lunch. Who else? Barry Lowen, who was in the Mando suit during season 2. We're very good friends, and lots of people. So yeah, Lateef Crowder, Brendan Wayne, they were both in the Mando suit. Good friends. When we get together on set, it's like we're working together. Acting is a team sport. Good actors are not focused on making themselves the focus of the scene. A good actor will try and make your scene partner look as good as possible, just like Carl did with me. And so it's really such a pleasure to know these people. Gina Carano, when I first met her on set, again, we were both watching a scene, and of course there's no episodes that aired or anything, so we're sitting there and I'm eating grapes and crackers because that's all I'm allowed to eat. And I said, hey, I'm Chris. She goes, oh, hi, I'm Gina. And I said, so what's your role today? She says, I'm an ex-shock trooper. And I go, oh, she's background. Okay. She's just like a trooper, And then I go and sit in my cast chair, and then she sits in the cast chair next to me, assigned to her. And I was like, wait, Gina, Mandalorian. Oh, Gina Carano, you know, like championship fighter, and she was just very low key, very down to earth, and so very sweet person. We've remained in touch as well. So, and Bryce Dallas Howard, who's here, and you should go say hi to her because she is like a blanket of joy that wraps around you. That is, you know, when you're wrapped around in a super tight car fender, it's nice to work with someone who's just so fun and is obviously loving what she does.
I think it's easy for us as fans to forget that we go to our jobs and we have work friends that become friends outside of work as well.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Same thing.
But yeah, we do love hearing about it.
Oh, yeah. Yes, hi.
Hi. So I was just curious, what's like the one thing that you'd like everyone to learn from your career and like who you are as a person?
Oh gosh, what I would love people to learn from my career or me as a person. I don't know. I think whatever you take from what you're hearing is what I'd like you to take from it. You know, when we make these stories, we tell the stories, we create characters, and we don't like to tell you what to think about this character or that performance or me as a person. We love it when you take something away that you're like, oh, this is what I think. That's what I would like. You know, I don't know. I've played good guys like C-3PO. I've played bad guys like Satan. So I have done other acting than in Star Wars, and so yeah, I would just say, you know, when you finish watching a movie, you're walking out to the parking lot with your friend, and you're like, oh, wow, I never thought of it this way, and then your friend is like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I was thinking of this, and you've seen two different movies in the same movie. And so that's what I think is so magical about what we do is you relate to what you relate to. And I love your question, and I don't mean to be evasive. I really would say, please take what relates to you from the stories that we're sharing or the answers. I hope that's okay.
I just want to make sure that we get to it here. You've got a couple projects in the works right now where you're not going to be hiding behind any droid masks or costumes. You want to
That's right.
fill people in a little bit on what we've got?
Yeah, there's I was in a horror film last year that will be coming out this year, I hope, called Last Chance Motel. I'm on camera playing a truck stop clerk. He has lines. And then also I'm working on right now a comedy series called Schmitty Circuit, which is created by Cheryl Chase, who plays Angelica in the Rugrats. And she wrote a main character for me. My name is Calvin Culpepper, who is a very successful actor on the most popular sci-fi show in their world. Anyway, so that's a lot of fun. And Schmitty is a robot who has been sitting in the corner of this fan's room for 30 years as an inanimate prop, and because of an accidental magic trick by a terrible magician, this robot was accidentally animated to real life. And now we find out through very awkward situations how much he has seen and heard over those 30 years. But he's really just trying to be helpful. Anyway, so I designed the robot and also am building it, and he's going to be played by a little performer and who I've worked with, and it'll be a lot of fun. It's a very snarky kind of, if you imagine, I don't know if you remember a show called Alf from the 80s, an alien who was living with a family who is, oh, you heard of this alien, R2? And how awkward that was. It's kind of like that, mixed with, I don't know, well, robot, I guess. But yeah, it's something that Cheryl and I created together, and she's the writer, and I just, throw in silly ideas. And so we have this great show. It's all fully funded. We're filming begins at the end of May. We've been working on it for about a year.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
We're
I'm trying to think if there's anything anything else that I can talk about?
As far as upcoming?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a very odd question that I wasn't planning. I'm sitting here looking at the gloves. Are those just your standard rubberized Gorilla gloves on the inside? They are.
Gorilla gloves.
Gorilla gloves. It's
Gorilla's like brand.
Brand,
Like
yeah.
Gorilla.
Oh, well, let's see. Well, you can't really see that. Anyway, this is the business side.
Yeah.
But apparently, 3PO throws his hands up and you see the palms. And so I built them very similar to the originals with some new technology. So, yes, we use found items because they're comfortable. And then we adorn it with other parts that will make it, look real and the way that it should.
It's amazing. So I'm looking at it like, wait, did I
it's
use the gloves out of my truck?
These are like gardening gloves. Yes, yeah. The original ones were fabric and they would tear and things like that. And we refined the wires so that it looked more. It's also easier to keep looking good because the originals would fall apart and tear out of there. So.
That is awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, like it totally just added for.
Yeah.
I know that it's not those types of gloves you're not going to find in the Star Wars universe, but it did just ground C-3PO in reality for me a little bit more than it ever has, and that's one of the fun parts of me getting to sit up here and be a fan as well. But.
Yes, yeah. So those are actually the more comfortable parts of the costume. The least comfortable parts are the neck and what's the other? Oh, the knees. The knees are uncomfortable. It's my own fault. But yeah.
So, sorry, respect it. As far as obviously these can be a little bit uncomfortable, but are there any scenes that are easier or harder for you when it comes to it? Or I mean, it's whether it's a more physical scene, if it's just a comedy scene versus a more serious, like what?
Yeah, moving around is more comfortable than just standing there for 3 hours. If you can move around and if your scene has some, just to give you an example, season 3 of Mandalorian, I play Copper. And Copper, his, C-3PO is like wearing a salad bowl with straws. So you can still see inside the head the wires and the lights and everything, but you don't want to focus on that. That can be very disorienting and like man in the iron mask kind of a feeling. You don't want to focus on that. So I focus on what's outside. So like I might see Carmen Sandiego, or I might see R2-D2, or Jon Favreau smiling at me. That's all great. And in Copper, we designed it to have glowing eyes, but there's no pupils in them. So there's nothing, I can't see through the helmet at all. So what I would do is I would rehearse it with the helmet off, especially if it's physical, like, okay, I need to walk about that far. It's about 12 steps. I have to do the line, I have to finish it about there, and then I turn and do this. Or Carl Weathers is rushing out after me and I have to run out the door before I am tackled by a former Oakland Raider. And I have to do it all blind. So I rehearse it all first and we go, and action. And then every scene as Copper is totally blind. Whether I'm running in the office or running out of the office or running across the lava flats or gesturing up to a ship above, I can't see a thing. And there was a time when we had to rush out, evacuate to the lava flats, and Carl's like, go, 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 and I'm like, I'm going as fast as I can. and we go out, but leaving his office, as you go to the left, you go out the door and turn left, there's scaffolding and lighting and plugs and equipment and stuff. There's nowhere to go. So the first time I went, I can't see, and I just go left, and I'm crash, and you hear this big crash. Things are falling. I'm disoriented, and it's because Carl and I collided with all the equipment. And every time after that, he would rush out after me, but he'd grab my arm and keep me so I wouldn't go too far. And that was really nice. Other times when I played Zero on the ship, I have to go look for Grogu in the ship, right? So I reach and grab my blaster. They said, go out the door and turn to your right. Okay, fine. It's all dark. I can kind of see, it's kind of foggy, but, so I stand up, I turn, go out, turn to the right, and I fall for what feels like, I don't know how long I'm gonna be falling. And I land on Grogu's puppeteer, Mike Manziel, because there's a hole in the floor. And nobody told me there's a hole, they just said turn right. I'm like, are you new here? So, that wasn't, exactly, that's what I sounded like. And then in that same episode, when I raise my blaster at Grogu, and then I get shot from behind as Mando, I go limp, and then I fall to the side. And so at first, Mike Manziel is there again, and they said, just fall, Mike will catch you. And I'm like, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, it's fine. So I fell on him, and I'm limp, so I'm trying to, I don't know where I'm out of the shot. And so I'm just like, you know, like a 2-year-old falling, but who's built out of metal. And it wasn't very comfortable. So I said, hey, after a few times doing that, can we get a pad for Mike so he could just kind of like, I could just fall on the pad? And so that made it a little nicer, but yeah, that was, I can't remember what the question was, sorry.
Difficult seeing something like that.
Yeah.
You bring up the lack of vision, and actually I bet there's some 501st members here that could probably help with that.
Right.
But or help with what I'm remembering.
Relate to that.
Years ago, at this show, I saw someone who had been designing the Stormtrooper helmet and had small, like little video screens inside.
Oh, interesting.
And so
that's
the whole
high tech.
thing, it was high tech, and he had cameras front, side, and back out of the back.
Cool.
So if anybody here knows, they might be able to, you know, maybe throw a little tip your way.
You know, that sounds like that'd be really cool. There's so little room inside this costume. There's no room for pads or fans. I think if I had monitors, they would really like my eyelashes would be touching.
They were close, and I do remember asking the guy like how much he put into it in the helmet alone. At that point, I think he was around 20-25K.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, for a really fun. Now,
Wow.
he could have been lying to me, I don't know. But, looking at that technology, wouldn't have surprised me. So.
Right. Wow. Well, let me see. Yeah, I don't have anything that I You know, we like to imagine that what we're seeing on screen is so much more high tech than it really is in real life. And sometimes it is, like the volume, that's super high tech. But yeah, a lot of times we're solving problems with, let's just give a low tech example. When I played One Jack in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the glowing green 4-lum type character, I find out on the day that I'm gonna be shot. So I didn't know I would be shot. And it was my idea to have his eyes glow. So now I'm gonna be shot. Well, his eyes can't be glowing if he's deactivated. So I asked my dresser, Dana Gasser, I said, is there any way we could like wire up the eyes so I could make them flicker and then turn them off? And no joke, he took a pair of plastic spoons and a rubber band and chewing gum wrapper and stuck it on the end, and so I teetered, I could like go like this and it would momentarily change turn on and off the light. And so we put it in my mouth and I go and I close it and now it's burning my mouth because it's a short circuiting in my mouth. So I said, maybe the prop department has something. So we go to the prop department. Of course, they have a switch. And so it was coated in rubber, and so I put it in my mouth, and when I get shot on the ground, you'll see the eyes flicker, and that's me chewing on the switch going, and that's it. That was literally as high-tech as that was, but it could have been, life-threatening. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I do want to say before we go, if there is anything that you love doing, keep doing it. You know, the things that are not a chore to practice or to learn about. You know, you might have something like, I can't learn enough about this thing, and I don't mind. I can't wait to get home from work to try it or do something new on it or whatever, that is a clue into something that's your passion. And as you keep doing that, every energy that you put out into that thing, every energy you put out comes back. None of it is wasted, and it will come back to you in a way that will be multiplied in ways you could have never imagined. And just like an example, when I was building the costume for myself, it was just for me, and that was enough. And yes, the dream was, gosh, wouldn't it be great if Lucasfilm gave me a thumbs up, or if they thought that it was worthy in some way to be seen on screen, but that'll never happen because I'm just a nerd in my garage at 2 a.m. building plastic and fiberglass. But all that effort that I was putting into it, that I've seen that in so many things, that dreams that have come true in my life and other people's lives, all they were doing was something for themselves. And it's easy to wonder if these efforts are wasted. All of that energy that you're putting out into this comes back to you in ways you could never imagine, in ways that something big happens that you could never have orchestrated, but you kept doing it. You kept at it, and it really does happen. And it's not just me. It's something cosmic about that. But I would recommend to everybody, if you have something, none of your effort is wasted.
I think that is absolutely. And I think that's important for us to say, on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for everything you do and all the joy you provide. We can have Chris back at the stage. Let's stop by, say hi, take pictures, all the fun stuff.
And may the force be with you.